In this video, we'll be looking at some of my favorite restoration pieces this year. The first one that we're going to look at is an 1890s buffet. I found this at auction and thought that it could be something amazing under all of that old shellac muck. The drawer on this piece is 47 inches. The moldings are just very intricately carved. It has lovely details on the old mirror, and it is the original mirror. The back piece is one huge piece of wood, so I just started taking it apart. When I took off the moldings on the front of this piece, I was shocked because they were very heavy. They felt almost metal and were really dark. After doing more research, we found that those were actually ironwood. Got out my denatured alcohol and started stripping off all of that old mucky shellac. Shellac is made with flakes and denatured alcohol. So when you put denatured alcohol back on it, it brings it back to its liquid state. What was left on here was, a lot of it was scratched off. It just needed a really good clean and to be given some TLC. So that's what we did with this piece. You can see that it comes off beautifully with just a rag. If it's giving you a bit more trouble when you do it, just use some 4/0 steel wool and that will sort it right out. And under all of that muck, sure enough, it was quarter sawn oak that was absolutely stunning. So much character and fleck in this that it was just amazing. I took these two door panels from the dark shellac to the light shellac in 8 minutes 37 seconds. Someone had removed a drawer runner or it had come off it, but luckily they had put it in the drawer, so I was able to just reinstall that, wax up those runners so that those drawers would slide really smoothly. And Alex had to hand carve some details on the legs that were missing. Then it was time to seal up that new wood so that I could work with color and match the old wood. And on each piece, we just kept putting coats of shellac on and making sure that it had all the protection that it would need. I believe I went to 9 coats, not between 9 and 12 coats of shellac on this piece, so well protected, and the wood is just breathtaking. In between each coat, I just ran 4/0 steel wool over it, and at the end, just made sure that I gave it a good wax with some Howard's feed and wax. It came out absolutely stunning, as you can see. Cleaned up the original hardware, and it just looked like jewelry on that piece. It was absolutely gorgeous. It brings out the details on those hand carved moldings. Alright, the next piece that we are going to take a look at is a fabulous buffet or servery that I picked up off of Facebook Marketplace. It was kept in a barn. It took a beating. It was in pretty bad shape. It was really dirty, gross, and I had to clean first and then start removing the old shellac. But I knew up under this it had some fantastic quarter sawn oak. I wanted to get down to it. I was not disappointed. It had beautiful fleck in this veneer and was just stunning. And so after removing all of that old shellac, it just came to life. Now I went to a place called Sawyer's Veneer and Company, and they told me that I would not be able to find the veneer with the fleck that was in this piece because the trees that are harvested now aren't mature enough to have that kind of fleck in it, which put me at a little bit of a dilemma. But I kept working on it and had to remove all the old moldings. They were all hand carved, absolutely stunning pieces. They had been broken in several places, so we repaired those and got them back into shape. Still had the dilemma of what I was going to do with those doors that all of that veneer was missing off of, since I couldn't replace that veneer, and came up with the best thing to do was to remove that veneer. Now, one thing that I will say, when you restore an old piece and you're removing old veneer, do it gently. Remove it and save it. Save it so that you can do repairs with that veneer, because you can't get it anymore. And the best thing to do is keep what we've got, and which is what I did there on the top. There's a piece of veneer missing on the corner of this, and so I just took the veneer that I had removed from the door and replaced that chunk that was out of it. I did this by just making a template of the missing veneer, putting it over the veneer that I had harvested. Then that way it was able to fit properly. There was a chunk of wood missing out of the front, so just glued a piece of wood in there, and then using chisels was able to fashion a new piece of oak to go in there. Not a perfect fit, but it looks much better than what was there. Then I stained that wood back. Didn't remove every little ding and dent. I think that gives character to antique pieces. I had sanded the doors down nice and smooth, and then I decided to paint them black. Added a little bit of black detailing in between the drawer runners to bring some of that black up, and then re-shellacked all those beautiful hand-carved moldings that I had repaired and put them back on the doors. When adding the shellac to the top of this piece, you could just see the beautiful golden color coming out in that quarter sawn oak. This is a veneer oak, but it was very, very thick. Anyone who is used to restoring furniture knows that most pieces are veneered. Veneer is not a bad word. It's not something you should stay away from. That's just how it's made. And the results on this was stunning when finished. I did put some gold wax over the knobs, cleaned up the handles. Those will all just patina back down as the piece is used more, and it's freshened up and looks stunning, ready for a new life. The next piece is an Empire buffet, missing some veneer on the edge of the top. The corbels were, well, disattached basically. I just had to pull them up with my hand. The feet were loose. It was dirty and filthy, which most of the pieces that I buy are. These are the pieces that people would just be, putting in a landfill around here. But it was time to clean it up and start removing all that shellac. So that was where we started. I knew that under all of this muck there would be a nice flame veneer under it, and there was. It was absolutely beautiful. I was very disappointed at the top though that it wasn't the same. And whenever I turned the piece upside down, I could see that that was not the original top to this piece. I had to figure out what I was going to do to make it look cohesive. These pieces are not very expensive in this area, so getting a new piece of flame veneer and putting back there was just not something I was going to do. I would never have gotten the return out of it needed. But look, when those drawers are cleaned off, that veneer is stunning. The only option was left to fill in the dings and dents on the top. And I removed all of the veneer that was on the edges of the top as well, since it was missing so much. I was able to use that veneer to do some repairs on the drawer. It wasn't the same veneer, but it was very close, and I was able to match up the graining so that it didn't look off. The top had a lot of scratches. It actually was made in 2 pieces, so I had to fill in those problem areas and put a coat of Ben's primer on it so it didn't bleed through. Then I went to shellacking the drawers. The drawers on this piece came up absolutely beautiful. The bookend veneer on them was just stunning. Put fresh coats of shellac on the sides. After painting the top black, gave everything a nice wax. Reinstalled those corbels and made sure that they were going to stay in this time. And the piece looked fantastic when finished. It just brought that veneer back to life. There's just so much movement to this veneer. It's incredible. The next piece was a piece that was quite fun to do. Found this piece actually in my neighborhood. Someone was moving out and they had left this on the side of the road. The veneer was detaching, so I had to glue back down the veneer as best I could and make it flat. Getting clamps around that waterfall top was a bit of a trick, so I used some straps to do it. Check out the original video because it's quite funny the way it's done. Unfortunately, it looked like the front of this had been in a war, so I had to remove the veneer from most of the drawers. I was able to keep the veneer on the top drawer, which was great. It had some really nice detailing on it that I wanted to save, some nice inlaid veneer. And by steaming that veneer off, I was able to bring it off in nice big usable pieces to do repairs on other things as well. Like I say, I save all the veneers that I remove because you just never know when you need to do a veneer repair, and it just works to keep it all. Stripped off the old finish on this piece on the top. I think someone had used a polyurethane on it so it wouldn't come off with denatured alcohol. I actually had to strip this off. I just wanted to give it a nice fresh lease on life. The piece was nice and solid though, absolutely solid. After giving those drawers a sand, I put a coat of 123 primer on. Alex did some drawer repairs on it because the drawer runners were so old and had been used so much that they had worn down. And there was a back piece that was missing that helped the drawers to sit properly. And he replaced that for me. Here you can see where we actually had to put wood onto those drawer runners because they were just worn down. Gave it a nice dark stain. Was able to tape off that inlaid veneer and stain around it to be able to save it and make sure that it stood out from on this piece. After I finished doing the staining, painted those drawers black, put a shellac finish on the parts that I had stained. Got several coats of shellac on this, but whenever I put the shellac on the top drawer, you can see that it just made that inlaid veneer pop. Painted the sides as well as the drawer fronts on this piece. This just gave it a bit of a more up-to-date look. The handles were missing their original paint. There was some of it there so I could figure out the color, but they were kind of a tin material, and so I was just able to match that paint and paint them back. Add a little detail to the top and it looked fantastic. So from the side of the road, this piece came a long way. Next piece was a buffet that I had bought. It's a tiny little buffet, and I bought it because no one else would buy it at the auction and I felt bad for it. That's all I can say. So brought it home, It was absolutely filthy. There was no cohesion to the way that this piece was designed. It was obvious that it was a Depression era piece and just they had just used whatever with it. So I started removing moldings, and then I started removing the old shellac off of this piece because it was really gross. Someone had left it in a window and the shellac had gotten all gummy. There was no saving the old shellac, it was just remove it. So the top of this piece had some veneer that was missing and damaged. And what I had to do there was square up that piece. So using a utility knife, I squared it up, then took my tape and made a template. Using some veneer that I had harvested from a piece before, I was able to take that template, put it on top of my veneer in the correct grain direction, make a repair to that veneer. Using a little bit of Tie-Bond glue, got that veneer all glued down, clamped it up and left it overnight to dry. The next morning I went ahead and shaved that down a bit to make it fit, and it worked beautifully. The veneer on the door, though, was not an easy fix. There was no way to fix that as I didn't have any of the walnut veneer. So I ended up removing all of that from that door, leaving just that center circle of walnut veneer in a chevron pattern. I went ahead and stained up those lovely Jacobean legs on this piece using some Dixie Belle No Pain Gel stain. They ended up looking fantastic. Used that same color Dixie Belle No Pain Gel stain in walnut on the top as well as the side panels. Used a little bit of shellac on those legs, giving them a nice coat. I think there's about 3 coats of shellac on those legs. Also used that on the walnut pieces that I was able to save on the front door in the center. I then put on a coat of 123 bonding primer, painted the sides black. I decided to do something to the inside of the door just to make it have a little bit of something special. So I got out my stencil, stenciled in a design over the black paint that I had painted on it, so that when you open the door, it just gave you kind of a nice little surprise. That came up absolutely beautifully. In the original video, you'll see that I did have to replace and repair this molding detail on the top, so I'm just painting that. And here is the end results. It's absolutely fabulous. Got the original hardware shined back up on it. You can see the veneer repair on the back, well, almost, and it looks absolutely stunning. The new owner was absolutely delighted with this piece. It fit the space so perfectly, it looked like it was a built-in. And now it has a new lease on life, even though no one loved it at auction. As we end 2022, we will see what 2023 brings. Lots of exciting things, and I've already started on some new projects, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell button, and we will see you in the new year.